What's up, guys? Today I'm going to introduce you to the basis of the plugin context interaction system. So first of all, make sure to install the plugin in the engine or the project and make sure to enable the plugin properly. So if you want to see this map is in plugins content. If you're not seeing this folder here, make sure to enable the plugin content here, right? In this map, we have a lot of examples on how to use the plugin and explain all the nodes and all the bases, even for multiplayer if you want to test. And the final map, we show a lot of things in related to best practice and nodes and some examples that you want to know about the plugin, right? So a lot of recommendations here, but before all of this, I'm going to explain how to install the main classes, and this is very important. So first of all, I'm going to just open this map. Yeah, we have nothing here. It is just 30% project and a blueprint 30% project. You don't have to convert your project into C++ project yet. So here I'm going to test in with the 2 players. So if you want to test with 2 players, just make sure to set the net mode as a play as listening server and make sure to here and enable 2 players. So how to install the plugin? First of all, I'm going to explain to you the basis of the plugin. So the base is the plugin have 2 or 3 main bases, 2 main components. So you have the components called interactor. So I'm gonna install this in the player, and everyone that wants to interact with something, right? So the interactor will gonna trace and detect all the objects that is possible to interact. And we have another, I'm gonna create an actor here, maybe a cube example, maybe 2. I'm not sure if the projects already have this name. And then we have the another component called the interactable. So I'm going to install interactable here. Interactable component. So make sure to install these 2 components for the plugin works properly. So in first character, if you install the component interactor, you'll already have all the events called in interaction. First of all, we have a trace. Yeah, it's I think every project of Interact System have a trace. So you make a trace to detect possible objects that have the interactable implemented, the interactable component. So I'm going to debug this trace. You can just choose the mode to trace with line trace or sphere trace. When you choose the sphere trace, you can set the sphere radius and the trace distance. We can say the sphere trace is so used in projects which is the third person perspective, maybe, and the line trace is so good to the first person project. And you can just switch with these 2 traces when you are playing game in real time. You can choose this. So if you put the interactor here and a trace distance, you can get the trace distance and you can set the detection mode, right? And you can just switch with the line trace and the sphere trace. And here, when you mark the trace, the debug trace, you see in the projects the debug trace here. So I'm not interacting with anything here yet. And then the first event that we have is select. So the basis of the plugin is select before interact. So you have to select first, and then the interactable component, of course, will bring all the events related to interactable components as well when you implement it. And when you have the interactable component, you will be able to be selected. So the selection works with this option here. It is standard to be marked, so it can be selected. And we're going to explain the tags after that. And just to test, I'm going to create a cube here. I'm going to change the color of the cube to blue. And I'm going to bring a select event, the select delegate. So I'm going to implement this event here and the deselect. So every time the player or the interactor actor, which the interactor actor has the interactor implemented. Every time that we have the interactor implemented, we have two options here, to select and to deselect. So if I select here, I'm going to set the material just to be more visual. The material will be selected. I'm going to get the material of the cube. Yep, but I'm going to set to be the red. And when I deselect, I'm going to set the material to blue, right? So when I'm selected the object, I'm going to turn the material to red. I'm going to deselect, I'm going to turn the material to blue. All right, your object has to be some kind of collision, of course. So the first good thing in the trace, this kind of trace, is you don't have to worry about the profile, the collision profile, just to detect your trace or not. It will gonna detect just the component, not exactly the profile of the trace. Don't worry about that, because we have a lot of options to if you can determine if it can be selected or not with required tags and block tags. Don't worry about avoid selection using the trace. The trace is important to keep working every time. First of all, of course, we have to bring the cube here. The person blueprint, yeah. So yeah. So this when I select the cube, change colors, and if you can see, I'm going to just bring. If I just set a multiplayer, this player will not gonna see the cube changing color, right? Because the select in here is not replicated. And most such projects, most of them don't want to replicate the selection state, just want to replicate the interaction state. But if you really want, you can replicate the selection state. So in interactable component, we have the object can be selected, and here we have the replication selection stage. If you mark these options, these events will still working, of course, and but to make sure to replicate, we have this event here on replicated selection changed. So you mark this option, you implement this event. I'm gonna bring this event here and select it, right? So in this case, I'm gonna replicate, but it's not gonna work now because you have to, first of all, yeah, make sure to mark these options in your actor if you really want to replicate your actor to be played in multiplayer. So interactable actor and the character actor has to mark this option to replicate. And then when I want to see the cube here and when I'm gonna play the cube, it will change the color to everyone, right? Perfect. So this is selection mode. You can just turn the selection. I'm gonna show you how is with the sphere trace. When I set the sphere trace, you can set the sphere trace radius here and the trace visibility as well, and it's something like that, right? And of course, just you can see the trace. The trace is not replicated. So if you want to just to test the trace is local, right? All right, so that is the selection mode. The select is the first step to interact. You just interacting with something you are selecting. So something very important here is in the interactor is which you have your target, your current target, which is your target you're selecting. This will set just once, all right? It's not popping up or ticking this current target. It's just once, and when you deselect, it turns nothing. It returns none. And you have the last target if you want to use the last target for any reason in your project. You have the last target available as well. So we have to explain the third base of the project. So interactor is the first thing, and the interactable is the second thing that you have to understand to implement all the functionalities of the plugin. The third thing is a data asset. So you right click on the mouse and browser and go to data asset and select this interaction definition. So interaction definitions is something that you have to implement in interactable, and interaction definitions is the rules you're gonna sure to interact with an object, right? And in all project you use gameplay tags. So in all the interactions and even to the selection mode, you have some rules to be selected, to be interacted, and that is very good to the project. The modular project is data-driven events. So first of all, just to give you an example of these tags, in interactable, you have to require tags and we have to block selection tags. So if you have never heard about the gameplay tags, in project settings, uh, if you access the gameplay tags here and manage the gameplay tags of your project. I've created some tags just for example. You can delete these tags or delete all the files of the project if you want, but this tag is needed to the tutorial map works properly. I'm gonna give you an example using the selection mode, right? So in the interactable, you just said can be selected and require selection tag. So if the interactable component has these tags, this selection will happen. If not has these tags, this selection will not happen. And of course, and within direction system here within interaction, we can define tags here. So just give you an example. I'm gonna test is required for the selection happens, and but the actor don't have any kind of selection of this text here. So I'm gonna test, and then I cannot select the object because I don't have the tag. Or better, the object don't have the tag. But if I just give the tag to the interactable, I'm gonna start with the tag. It is will be a required tag. So now I can select, right? That's so useful if you want to do a game. For an example, if you wanted to see the tutorial in some steps, you'll make sure this object can only be selected when I just finish something here in the tutorial, and then I can select and interact with this object. And in the same way, we have the blocked selection tags. So if the interactable has this block tag, the interaction is not gonna happen. The selection is not gonna happen, right? So it's not gonna happen because I have the tag. It's just for the selection here, right? But the heart of the project is the data asset. So as I said, the data asset here will define all the rules of an interaction. you can define an interaction tag, right? You has to set this here. So I'm gonna just, the interaction tag will be just test. You can set a display name, and after you can access this display name. So useful for HUDs. Particularly, I prefer create a data table to index all the things that I want to show in HUD. But if you want to use the display name, is very nice as well. And can be aborted, so that's very important. That's a base of the project. All the interactions can be ended or can be aborted, right? And you can separate events for abort and separate events for end. For example, we have here some end effects. I'm going to explain to you. So the end effects happens when the interaction ends. But if a player abort this event, it's not going to happen the end events, right? And here we can set, for example, in so common in interaction games, have a main button to abort an action. For example, F. F key is can be a key to abort all the things that you just interacting. I'm interacting a computer, a ball, or everything that is showing me something. You can abort with the button. You can just set if you want to objects be aborted or not, right? The priority is used when you have more than one interaction definitions, because yes, you can have more than one interactions in the same actor, and that's very nice. So this interaction that I said here, I have one of them, but I can add more than one interactions. I have some interactions in the example, but I'm going to show two interactions for an example here. So the priority will establish how interaction is going to be chosen when the player interacts. Because when the player interacts with the objects, the player tries to interact. So I'm going to set here, it should be more clear, uh, can be the keyboard E, and I'm going to try interact, right? So I'm going to try interact to the object. I'm going to return to me if I get succeeded or not. So we have another nodes to interact. You can interact by index or by tag. By index because we can have more than one indexes of interactions here. But you can interact with, if you try to interact, you're gonna carry the highest priority value valid to interact. So if the interaction is available, in other words, it has the tags that you want, that everything that you establish, and the player can interact with this interaction, the highest priority is considered. Here we can define the requirements. So I can set requirements about the interactor, and I can set requirements about the target. So about the interactor, it's all the tags that I want the interactor has, and the target, all the tags that I want the target has, which is the interactable component, and the blocked tags. So you can block the interaction because the interactor doesn't have the tag, the player, for example, and you can block the interaction because the on target doesn't have the tag, right? So that's very nice, isn't it? Because you have to set easily some requirements here. And the effects, we're gonna set all the effects, which is you can add tags and or remove tags on interaction. And you can do this on start events or end events. For an example, it's so common example, when I start interaction, I'm gonna add interaction to the player, which is interacting state. So I'm gonna just set the state how the player is interacting. So the player, I can set a requirement here. So the player is not able to interact to this object if the player has the state interacting. And then in the end of the event, I can remove this tag from the player. I can remove from interactor on end, right? Or yeah, interacting. That's it. And here we have some rules to end, right? Require range, a specific range. The player and the object have a specific range to end, or some requirements to end this event, right? So this is the heart of the context interaction. You can determine some tags just to be sure the player is going to interact, or the tags that avoid an interaction. So I'm going to give you some example of that. So when I press E, I'm going to interact. I'm going to try interact, right? So I'm going to just make sure I don't have any tag that will block. You have to put at least one interaction definition here, right? It's so important. But I'm not going to put this interaction. So we define a test, priority 0. I don't have any specific name here. The requirements, I'm going to just take the requirements here, not necessary yet. So I'm going to save. And then this cube, we're going to receive the interaction, right? So I'm not interested in selected events anymore. So I'm just drag the interact event on interaction delegate. I'm going to explain with the context. We can interact with a context. The context will bring all informations about this interaction. So if you easily to use the interactor actor, target actor, the components and the tag and all of that. But I'm going to use in this case a simple interaction here, right? Which is the interaction ended interaction star delegate. On interaction delegate, right? So here when interact, I'm gonna set the cube to turns red, right? So when I press the E key, it's interacting, all right? So pressing E, I turn the cube red. But in this case, I created an interaction, so the player has an interaction here. If I just check, when I press, let's see, when I press 1, interactions, get active interactions, I'm gonna return the length of interactions here in print, right? Because every time that we interact, we create an interaction here. So if I interacted with the cube, I have one interaction. But if I press E again, I have 2 interactions. E, I have a lot of interactions. So I'm creating a lot of interactions with this cube because I have never ended this interaction. I'm just creating new interactions with the same interaction definition, right? And then we're gonna block this. When the player interacts, we're gonna receive, or better, the target we're gonna receive, because if the target receives an tag, this tag will be replicated to the other players, and other players cannot interact. So that's what I want for now. And when these interactions finishes, I'm gonna remove. So I'm gonna remove from target to end. So when the finishes interaction, I'm gonna remove the same tag here, interacting. It's no so nice for you guys. Try to implement some tags which is generic tags to use all over your project, right? Like that. And then we're gonna block if an interaction when the target has the state of interacting, right? So if I try to interact, the target would not have this tag, will be allowed to interact with the target, but in the interaction event, the target will receive this tag, and then the next try of interaction is not gonna work. So we have 0 interactions here. I'm gonna press 1, and when I interact, I have 1 interaction. If I interact again, I have 1 interaction. If I interact again, 1 interaction. And here, just for make easier to debug, I have here 1 event interaction, which is the interaction failed, right? And interaction failed brings you a fail reason. If you want to print, because you can fail in a lot of aspects, because you're missing required interactor tags, or blocked by interactor tag, or missing required target tag, or a lot of things included the out of range, or if the target doesn't have the valid interaction definitions, or something like that, right? So I'm gonna just return here when an interaction failed, just to debug in a project, to make easy to debug, right? So if I try to interact with this cube, I get succeeds, but if I try again, I'm blocked by target tag, as I put here. So if I just remove from this, I can allow player to interact make a lot of interactions here with the same object, right? So that is replicated, and that's so nice. So I'm gonna just test on replicate state. So I'm gonna test with the 2 players here. Yeah. So the client tried to interact and change the color. I didn't replicate this state, right? We can see this after. And then I'm gonna try to interact here. All right, I'm blocked. I cannot interact with this object because the client already interacted. But as you can see, the cube is red for me, the server, and blue. It's not changed for the client. So why is happening? Because this event is called by the server, right? So the server is controlling this event, but it's not replicated to other clients. So how can I replicate this event? So for this, you can use a Boolean color, because we're gonna just switch in 2 colors and a Boolean will fit. So, and here in replication, we're gonna set rep notify. So rep notify is when you create a variable which we want to replicate. The engine creates in a function for us, and this function is called for all clients here. So when this happens, we'll inform all clients that is changing color. So I'm gonna just put this here, and then every time some player interact with this cube, I'm gonna set the color to the different color, like a flip-flop. But I don't want to do a flip-flop here. I'm gonna just put a not Boolean. If the color is not, it will cause the same effect of flip-flop if it's just switching and true and false in Boolean, right? And then rep notify, we can change directly the color here, right? So the color will be when this true, and we will start as false, and the false is blue, right? And this is red. So I'm gonna just get this color here and make sure the blue is default color. So when it's true, it will turn in red, which is different. And when when it's false, it's gonna turn blue again. Yeah. So that is so clean, and we're gonna work. So we have here, right? server and the object. So I'm gonna choose, I'm gonna just do this on the client because it's so important to debug. So the client changed, interact with the objects, and the objects change the color for everyone, right? That's so important. So rep notify, it is a good way if you want to set something that you want to persist, like a color changed. I'm gonna just change. All right, I'm gonna just try something here. So every time that I interacted delegate, I want to now finish this event. I want to finish this interaction. So if I want to finish an interaction using the interactable, I request to do this, request and interaction, right? So when I request, interactor actor is going to required, because when I interact with this object, I create an instance of interaction here in the player. So I'm gonna end this instance in the player. All right. So that's very important. So this is make almost instantly, because I'm gonna interact and I'm gonna finish in the same time the event. And it's so common to simple interactions. Simple interactions, if you don't want to persist of interactions, is just turning off. For example, a light that you want to turn and off the light. You don't have to persist an interaction while the light is turning on, for example, and then when you turn it off, you end this interaction. It's not healthy for the code. So if interaction is just a switcher, you can just initiate the interaction and then finish this interaction. All right. So I'm gonna test this here. Yeah, I already do this, changing the color, but I want to see the client. All right, the client. So the client can see the server changing the color, and the server can watch the client changing color of the cube. Perfect. So we check about these interactions. This access here. Yeah. So in other words, you can just make a lot of rules using these interactions. And another example that I want to show you, what if I want to put a sound while this is happening? I can just put a sound here and a sound play sound here on the rep notify, but it is not recommended to do this. And the reason why, it's because a sound is a immediate effect that you don't want to persist this effect. So if you put a sound here, the sound is gonna play. So every time something happens in the game, the sound is playing. But if a new player enter in this room, the sound is gonna play. The old sound that played some time ago, it's gonna play again. So it's not healthy. Because of that, we just want to do this once. And you can do this. Oh, my cat is destroying all my setup here. I'm sorry. So if I want to add event, a custom event, which is multicast event, and the multicast event is gonna play a sound, right? So I'm gonna play a sound. Oh, play sound 2D or 3D if you want. Just get a sound here, and then we can establish a sound, and then this event will be multicast because I want to replicate to all the clients and all the players. And as you noticed, uh, I set the effect in rep notify, and the rep notify, as I said, we just replicate with all the clients, but the server is also included in this event. Because of that, I don't have to do a specific event for the host or everything like that. The rep notify resolves this. And then I'm gonna call a modcast with not reliable because it's not an important event in the server. So I'm gonna play sound. I'm gonna call function. Oh, definitely is not a good name. That a so generic name. It's called some misunderstands and set some notes. So if I do this, the sound is gonna played, and the modcast will work because this event here is called by the server, and it's gonna work, right? If I play this sound is gonna work. So for multiplayer games, it is so valuable. So if you understand that some persistent states should be inset with notify, and then immediate effects should be in the modcast, would help you a lot with developing some multiplayer games. Alright guys, now let's overview the tutorial map. So in this map, as I said to you, show some examples of how doing something in the project, and there are a lot of things that I didn't tell you that's so important to tell you now. So let's dive in. Well, when you enter, I'm gonna just reveal some things to you. All right. So we are starting talking about the line trace options. All right. That I have two line trace in the project, and you can be a sphere or a line. All right. No doubts about that. That's a simple interaction with cubes. I'll just give you as an example of interaction of cubes. Simple interactions, it is so common to start and the end at the same time. So this is an example. So every time this map, I'm gonna just pause and open this blueprint. You can do this if you want to just copy idea from a node or something like that. And here we're talking about the rules of the select event. So we're talking about the select event, that select event can has some required tags and blocker tags. And we're talking about the basis of the products, which is the interactor, the interactable, and the interaction definition. We're talking about the flow. The basic flow is starting the player, goes to the interactor, which is the player. So the interactor reacts with the trace in an interactable component. So interactable component starts interaction definition. The player is just save the interaction definitions instance, and then it's going to trigger all the interaction events related to it. And all based in gameplay tags is data-driven events, and everything is set for multiplayer. So most of these functionalities and the delegates events is multiplayer events. All right. So I think it's no doubt about this because I'm going to explain this for you. So I'm going to just reveal all this aspect of the map. So the first cube, if you check, it was just simple. We start so an event and a delegate event. It's not with context. It's so simple. And of course, the cube has interactable component implemented. And when it was set with notified, we did the same in the example in the beginning. And then we multicast a sound and request immediately at the end of the interaction. All right, because we don't want to save to store this interaction. We just want to switch the color, and we have another. I don't want the player has a specific link to this cube. We're gonna see something that is different because this cube I cannot interact. And if you want just asking what is this in the cube, this effect that I just go to the near the cube and the effect to just pop up. It's so simple, guys. It's not even made by me, but it's so native to the engine. You can implement the material billboard. You can do this. So if you are just using the plugin, I'm gonna just put this material in the project. You can use as you want. So this material, the specific thing that you have to do this is a opacity curve, because the opacity curve is the term how distance as you have to do has you to be to this material start to pop up and start to show. So we have a curve like this in the project, just to an example. So for an example, when I have the 200, I think it's centimeters of distance of the object, the opacity will be set by 0.7. And if I had 500 centimeters of distance of the object, the opacity will be turned to 0.5. And then when I get 800 centimeters, we have the opacity 0. In other words, I cannot see this effect here. All right, and this effect, it's a specific material that you can put images here. It's so nice. So you can put a hand image if you're just interacting with using the hand, or you can use a computer if you're interacting with a computer widgets or something like that. So it's so useful, and it's so cheap for the code. So it not depend of anything. It's so independent. So you can just do a parent class that has all these functions. You can do the same. If you change the curve, you change the curve for anybody, and you determine the size of this material. It's not a widget. This material, and then that's it, right? So simple, and you can add more than one of these elements. So material billboards is so nice to work. So, but it's not exactly part of the contest. I'm just giving you an extra material when you get the plugin, all right? So continuing, this room, we will explain to you all the things about the interaction definitions, all right? So here we have specific thing in the project, which is when I try to interact, I don't have the key to interact with this cube, all right? So I restrict the interaction from this cube here. So when I try to interact, I cannot interact because I'm missing the key, and this cube has a specific interaction that give me the key, give the interactor a key to interact with this. If I try to interact with this cube, so I can interact it, and if I try to interact again, I don't have the key anymore. All right, so it is so simple as well. It is simple interaction, so it's not persistent. If I check the cube, the black cube, it is a interaction. It is I called as activator. So the only thing that this interaction does is give the interactor a key. All right, and then I remove this key manually when I try to interact again, just to be a kind of flip-flop with a give you the key and at the same time just to get the key back again. Like you can remove and add tags on the delegate events in the interact system, because this delegate events is called by the server. So you can add and remove tags from the player or from the directable easily because it's server called. All right, so I think that's it. Here in the project, if you press M, you carry. Let's talk about the carry system. So the room 3 is the carry system and the priority system. So the carry is a very good way to debug something in the project. So we have this code in the main character here. So in an example, the example, or better, in the third person of the plugin, we have this example here. These two functions are very important to debug your code. Carry interactions definition, you're gonna carry by using the interactor actor and interaction definition that you will interact. So it will return to you a message if, for an example, it's not valid or you're gonna failed. It's gonna bring to you a failed message that why is gonna happening this interaction. And if it's not valid, it's bring to you it's not valid. The same failure reason that we have in an event of the interactor, which is the fail delegate, we have here as well. So here you can just copy and paste in your own code. This, if you press M, you're gonna try to debug this in the print screen. So here, for an example, I have no interactable component on my line of sight on my trace, and here I have. So here I have a valid object to interact, and here I don't have any object to interact, or better, I have an object to interact, but it's not possible to interact because the key of the room is missing. All right, so here I have a valid interaction because I can get the key, and now is valid, so I can just use the carry system to debug easily. All right, and then we have something very important. And when you have more than one interaction definitions, the chosen one will be the highest valid priority one. So this interaction has to be valid to be chosen. And the second point is this object has to be the highest value object on the list. All right. Unless if you are just not trying to interact with the player, but try to interact by index or try to interact by tag using the interaction tag. Using the interaction tag, you can interact directly to the object, to the interaction definitions, without just try establish priorities or anything like that. All right. So in this case, you're going to ask, but what if I have two objects with the same priority level? Here we select a mode to choose in case of two objects has the same value of priority. So in this mode, which is standard, we select the first. So when you're just running on the array, it is running the index 0 and the index 1, index 2, index 3. So if the index 0 is the highest one priority and the index 0 is valid, the index 0 will be chosen here. All right. And if I just set as random, if I have the two interaction definitions, which is both valid and the same priority value and the same highest priority value, the code will randomize these priorities, all right, these interactions. So if you want, for some reason, randomizing, you can use this to randomize, all right? It's very nice because if you want to do, for an example, randomize apparel for a character, for an example, appearance for the character, you can just set a lot of interactions responsible to call these interactions, and you can do this, all right? Here in the room 3, we have something that when we interact with the cube purple, the cube turns yellow and returns to be purple. So we have here an example of two definitions in this cube, in this pink cube. So the one definition, which is the cube yellow, turns the cube yellow, and the priority is 10. And then we have another interaction definition, which is the cube blue, that turns the priority blue. So if you check here, we have the two priorities, right? One that turns the cube yellow, one that turns the cube blue. The cube yellow has 10 of priority, all right? And the cube blue has one priority here. So of course, if I try to interact with the cube the yellow color is be called because it is the highest priority interaction, all right? But if I interact with the big cube, that big cubes block the yellow ones, all right? Block the interaction yellow. So, and now the interaction yellow is the most priority interaction, but it's blocked. So the priority chosen is the blue priority, all right? This is the blue interaction because the yellow is blocked. All right. I think that's it. And now is very important. You can set the priority offset. In other words, you can set the dynamic priority because when you just handling data assets, you cannot change in runtime this value priority. But what if you want to change the priority during the code, during the execution of the code? For example, when you get something object in your server in your game, when you get this object, you can set the priority to 1 or to 2, 3. You can set this easily, all right? And that's a specific node for this. So when you are in interactable, you set with the priority set. And then you can set interaction definition priority modifier. For an example, if you have in a base, in a data asset, the priority established by 1, and you add the priority modifier by 1, the final priority will be 2, all right? Priority get. So the final priority will be 2. And of course, when you set, you can define what interaction definition we will be modifying, right? And if you don't have the specific interaction definition, nothing going to happen. You have to really on this interaction definition, all right? So this priority. So we have this kind of code here, which is very nice. And here we have the interaction definition priority modifier as well. So we can get this value that we established. So this value will be separated from the other values, because if you want to clear these values, modifiers, we can just clear to 1 or clear to all interaction definitions. And that's very nice. So if I want to just clear all the interaction definitions priority modifiers for some reason, I will just clear once, or just clear for every interaction definition that I have in the project, in this actor. All right, that's very nice, right? So we have an example in the room green of this, exactly this. But let's continue and go to the room yellow. So the room yellow tells us about the tags, interactions, and active interactions. And here, for the first time, you have an interaction that persists, right? So this interaction that persists, when we interact of this, we cannot not just end the interaction, all right? This interaction persists, and that's very, very good. So if I press G, I end all active interactions. If I press F, I end the last interaction. So that is events, all right? So if I just playing as a character here, I can end interaction. And the interactor, I can end all interactions, or I can end interactions with target, or I can end the last interaction, all right? So I'm gonna set me here. All right. So for an example, here we have some cubes that becomes black, but if I try to end, I'm gonna end the last interaction. All right. I'm gonna list of the last interactions, so it is easy to and, or if I want just to end all of these interactions, I press G. All right. So if you want just to modify in mass your gameplay tags in your game, for example, you ask to AI to build a bunch of gameplay tags that's so useful for your game for some reason. I'm not recommended anyway because I don't know. I think the gameplay tag should be created by your demand. I need have this gameplay tag, so I do this tag, but if you really want to edit your gameplay tag en masse more than one, you can access the archive ini point dot ini in the project of your game. All right, you in the Unreal project, the config folder, you can access the gameplay tags. And you can also edit your gameplay tags in project settings, which will so nice. All right, try to use gameplay tags which is easy to and modular, easy to maintain, to keep, to maintain. That's very nice. And I think we cover all of the subjects, but again, we can start these interactions using the interactor by index, or try to interact in normal if it's just carry the most valid and highest priority one, and you can try interact by tag. All right, and you can just abort the interactions using the interactor or using the interactable. All right, so you can abort using the interactor. I can end using the interactor as well, and you can end the interaction using interactable. So one thing that is so important to comment is this: auto selectable. Remember when I said to you we have cases in we have more than one interactions in the same actor, and we have to establish the highest priority ones to be chosen. If you select auto selectable here, every time that the players try to interact with this interaction is not gonna happen anything. All right, because it's only possible to access this interaction with unmarked option when you interact directly to this tag, directly to this interaction definition. All right, so if I mark this, I cannot interact. For example, in rune number 1, I have this cube is so simple interaction here with the cube blue. But if I edit the cube interaction definition data asset, if I change this, right, it's the player is gonna try to interact, but no valid interaction definition is set. The only interact definition that I have in this cube now is not auto selectable, so you have to mark this. All right, just this because you have to set manually in some point in your code, or you have to just allow this interaction when something happens specifically. All right, so I forgot it to comment of this node is so important. Oh, that's the description. If it's true, this definition can be automatically selected by the try interact and priority carries. It's false, it can still be used manually by tag or index. And then we have the green room, all right? The final room in the tutorial. And that's very important. It's so game changing for a lot of people. Events, wait nodes, and context. So events, I already commented with you, all the delegate events. Most of them is called by the server, except the target event. All right, that's an exception because the target is set and established local with the line trace. So that's the only one that's not replicated. We have a context. So the context is so important because you can interact with a lot of things using the context. So in interactable, for example, we have so common events like on delegate interactable, but you can interact with the context. If you interact with the context, it will bring you all the information I have already commented with you. But it's so useful to just pass the information by interfaces or something like that. It is so easy to manage your target, your interactor, the interacting definition that was chosen. Yeah, it's so easy to manage. All right. And here we have a game with the 3 cubes. It is the same cube. Each cube has 3 interaction definitions, which one is blocked because don't have the amount of priority to compete with the 2 ones. So let's see this. Close. So we have 3 panels examples here, and the interactions. So the first one, the third one, and this one. So this one has 0 priority. It's the C. This one is the B. It has 1 priority, and this one, the A, has 1 priority. So if you try to interact this actor and this way, just the 0 and the 1, just or better, just the A and the B will return something. So the A and the B will return, and the C will not return anything because it has the enough priority to interact. But at this point, when we unlocked this value, we set a modifier, the C, to be 10. So let's see this in practical. So every time that we see, yeah, every time that I try to interact, this is letter A and letter B. I use the display name just to set and find easily these 2 ones here. And then I'm gonna always sort a random value here between these 2 A and B interactions definitions. But if I succeed in sorting a value between 150 and 200, I set the interaction definition priority modifier as C by 10. So when I do this, the only available interaction definition will be the C because it has the highest priority comparing to 2 ones. All right. When I do this, I start to sorting higher values for my code. It's just, in other words, I try the look here. If I look, I sort a high value, which will unlock. I'm so lucky to do this. Yeah, I got it. So this one will start return to me higher values comparing to this one. And to get the big price, I have to do this in all green cubes. I'm not so lucky. I'm not spending time trying to do this mini game, right? So that's an example of using set priority during the game, all right? It's very nice to do. You may be asking, what about the wait nodes? All right, the wait nodes, if you're used to use gas in your games or the projects, you understand what I'm talking about. So wait nodes derived from the delegates. Wait nodes works as async modes, and that's very nice. It's a creates a event-driven interaction logic. It brings you very possibilities, and I like very much because of gas. So we implemented this in the projects because of gas. So that's an example that I'm gonna bring to one of the mini games in the examples room. Here I'm wait interactor tag changed on interactor, of course. So when the interactor has this tag changed, in other words, or this tag is added or this tag is removed. For an example, I receive this event, all right, and this tag is added. I trigger this node here on tag change. But if I already have this tag and I receive this event again, someone or something tried to put this tag again on me, I'm not trigger this tag anymore. I'm not trigger this event. All right. This event is only triggered when a change happens. So when is a tag added or a tag removed. And it's not using ticks, not using casts. It is very clean, very good. If you are just thinking about, oh, this can be used for HUDs, you're right. So this HUD that we have in tutorial, that we can just put the select mode on the target changes and interact, you use the wait nodes. So if you want to check out and see how it works, you can just in widgets and example widgets, you have this option here. So we use a interaction target change. It's very important. And I put another wait here just to interact with the dummy, because the dummy has a specific logic for abort. All right, it's not the best code. I just could do this in another way, but for an example is good. All right. So we're gonna check this later, but just to be sure how I can access the interactor here in a widget. So I can just use this. I can the only player, I can the controlled pawn, and I get the interactor component, which is a pure function of the interaction system component. All right. And then I just set this component as a variable because I'm gonna use this during the widget event. All right. So the wait nodes are so good. We have some wait nodes available in a project. So you can just wait for a tag change, all right, in interactable. If an interactable receive a tag from an interactor or something like that, you can just trigger an event, or you can just, here is very good because we have a specific wait for the interaction priority change. So you have to put the interactable component. You can put the interaction definition to listen to this event, and then you will be able to receive all these changes that happens with the interaction definitions every time these interaction definitions change this priority. So it's very nice because it brings you the base priority value, the priority modifier, and the final priority. So it's very, very nice and very easy to implement functions about that. So interactor tag change as well, it's a good way because remember, it's the only wait node which is local run. So it's just because we use the target, and that's very nice. So it established the new target, the old interactable component, and that's very nice. So we have interaction finish or start just for interactor, and interactor tag change as I showed to you. So you can do a lot of things with these nodes, all right? And you can use delegates instead of using this node as well, no problem. But some nodes we not have delegates specifically for this node for changes. All right, so because of that, well, if you just want to track in the clean way, it was just not using ticks or polling, you should use the wait nodes. And finally, we have the room, the blue room, that we have some specific examples here. So this example is so simple, is a simple action with the turn the light on or off. Of course, it's replicated, but here special because I bring the functionality of replicating the select event. So this event that I just go and turns this ball black to green, everyone can see this event here because it's replicated to all players. All right, just giving an example of selecting mode. And here we have a simple logic of door, right? Nothing too important, but we have a timeline here, so it seems to be easy to implement, but with you're just trying to implement the timeline, you have to worry about not doing this running on for our clients, but locally and server controlled. All right. And this here we have an NPC talking. This NPC, when you talking to it, it restrain your player movement. So I use a tag that I showed you some minutes ago to block all movements of the player, and we have option to abort. So when talking to this one, we were just sing to me and see something here. All right, let me stop writing um, functionality, and then all right, I'm dismissed of this event. So if I try it again, very nice. And if I want to abort this event, all right, very nice. And then we have interaction with the ball here. So the ball is the same that the beginning ball. It's just teleport you. So nothing special. So I think, guys, I just tell you some tips on the walls. I'm not going to comment any other tips, but I just comment this phrase, this just very good for that project. Keep gameplay authoritative, keep visuals local, and keep the interactions modular. That's very important to keep your code clean and easy to extend. And this interaction system, of course, it helps you a lot for easy implements and prototype a lot of functionalities, but you have to respect some rules of multiplayer. You have to train your code to be modular, your tags, because if you're already implemented some tag, for example, you want to change, it can be a little bit complicated. It's not so good because you're going to reference this tag a lot of points of your code, and one day your code is gonna be bigger and bigger and bigger, and so you have to plan since the beginning gameplay tags you're gonna use to avoid problems in the future. All right, I think this video will be a guide for who is beginning on the interact system. I want to hear from you what you thinking about the system, what you would implement, because we're gonna bring another versions of this interaction system, uh, just to bring some enhances and all this stuff. All right. So thank you for watching, and that's it.